Podcasting from sunny Clearwater, Florida, home to one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Each week, we bring you real conversations with inventors, entrepreneurs, and product pros navigating the wild world of innovation. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, this is your place to fuel up and launch forward. And now here's your host, innovator, author, and invention expert, Carmine Danisco.
Hi everyone, Carmine Danisco here on the Launchpad. It is early September 2025, and this is season 8 of the Launchpad. We are broadcasting on the Launch Network, and we've broadcasted for over 7 or 8 seasons, 8 seasons now, and we have covered so many different subjects whilst we've been on the Launchpad, talked to some great guests that we're starting to bring some of those guests back around, see how they're doing, what they've been up to, and it's been a lot of fun. Currently, I have been fielding a lot of questions from the show, not only about manufacturing and patents and intellectual property, which is the usual types things, but several questions came in last month on prototypes and samples of products. And that's something that we've covered many times. And even I sometimes, when I'm talking to a new client or I'm doing a talk at a school or a manufacturing class, or maybe even at a show, I don't want to say I mess it up, but there's a gray area when you're talking about different types of things. And the cost could be rather significant when you are going back and forth talking about those products. And it all depends on who you're talking to. Now, if you're just talking to, a retail buyer, or you're talking to somebody who might want to look at your product for licensing, or, somebody that is just interested maybe in investing, they may be just wanting to take a look at, hey, what do you got? What's this thing do? You've been telling me about this invention. I'd like to see it in action, and a lot of people say, well, I have this company, and they're making me a sample of it. But in reality, that company is making them a prototype, but you asked for a sample. So there's a lot of things in that gray area. And the questions that I've been getting, it's taken me a little bit of time. I have to really think it out, because there is a difference when you talk about prototypes to a sample of your product. Now, so let's talk a little bit about prototyping, and then we'll get a little deeper on. So, and a lot of you that have been following along and have been listening to the show for a while, you know this most likely. And if you don't, or you missed some of the things we talked about, listen, there's a lot of things to learn in the invention world, in the product world, in the business world. I learn something new every day. I make a misstep every day. So we're constantly learning, all of us. So in the prototype world, in the production world, and, prototypes stream or stem across many different industries. They prototype cars, they prototype products, they prototype houses, they prototype all kinds of things. And that word prototype gets really thrown around a lot. But there's many different versions of a prototype, and each could cost a lot less or a lot more than what you're looking for. So it's very important that you're very clear about what you need to see your product in action, get your product to the point where it wants to go for that next step. As I said, you might have someone who wants to invest in your product, or a store that wants to carry your product, and they'll give you a purchase order. If they just see something about it, they may say, hey, man, just put a prototype together. I'd like to see that, make sure your product can do what you're saying it can do. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't even have to look like what the finished product would look like. Some people just want to see if your product can do what you're saying it can do. You believe it can do it. Of course, you're like, listen, I'm the inventor. Of course, I wouldn't be telling you it could do that if it couldn't. But when people are going to take money out of their pocket, when people are going to put their name on something, they're going to sign something, they're going to help you, they're going to introduce you, they're going to do something off of what you're telling them. A lot of times they do believe you. I'm not saying they don't believe you, but a lot of times the person they're recommending you to, or the person that wants to say, hey, you back this person, does it work? And if they haven't seen it work, it's hard for them to say, yes, it works. They haven't seen it. They haven't seen it work. They haven't seen what it does. So let's go back a little bit. And I can talk about this kind of stuff for a while. But I just want to kind of go through some of the things. So if we're talking about prototypes, there's a couple of different kinds of prototypes. With the new age of 3D printing, it has really helped us product developers, us inventors, us innovators, the people like us, and the people who are engineers that are helping us, the young guys that can just jump on a computer and draw up what's in your brain as you're telling them. It's fantastic to be able to quickly whip up an idea and possibly 3D print it and have it that same day. AI is coming around also, and the artificial intelligence world. I don't know how it's going to be involved too much in the prototyping world, but I'm sure it will be intertwined within everything we do as we're developing products and ideas and inventions. It could probably speed things up. I don't know if it ever come down to making those final decisions, but AI seems like it's in everything. I myself, I'm not a big user of AI. I just never did. People in our office constantly using AI to do a lot of the tasks that we used to take a while to do. And I think it's cool. I love implementing technology. So back up. I go on these tangents. So with the age of 3D printing, it is a lot easier. And I hate using the word easy, faster, better, stronger, whatever you want to call it, to come up with or see your idea come to life. Now, most of the time when we're utilizing a 3D printing technology, we have had an engineer or someone, maybe yourself, you've taught yourself how to use some type of CAD software, and they've outputted what's called an STL file. The STL file is what a 3D printer sees or reads in order to start to make that idea, that product, that drawing. And what's cool about 3D printers is that they can quickly create what I call, and a lot of people will call it, a looks like prototype for you. And in most cases, that looks like prototype is kind of all you need to get to that next level, to get to that idea that you have and making sure that it is feasible to create. Now, a looks like prototype depends on what you need to move forward. So if you have a product that doesn't have a lot of moving parts, maybe it only has one moving part. It doesn't have electronics, or it could have electronics, but maybe you don't need to put those or implement those electronics yet. You're just trying to make sure that your idea can fit into a certain configuration. It can be made. It can be designed. I have this product and I want to build a little box that has a light, and as long as I can build this box and it slides into this component, then I know I can get the electronics in there. So let's build a box, so you can get a 3D printer to create that looks like prototype. It doesn't work like it's supposed to, but it's a looks like prototype. Now, some people, maybe they're creating a new water bottle, right? And they have a 3D printer create the design of the water bottle. Now, it's not going to be made from that plastic or whatever that material is that the 3D printer is outputting. But that 3D printer can output the looks like the design of that water bottle, and you'll be able to say, hey, you see these ridges? Let's make these ridges a little sharper. If we have that hourglass design, it's not going to hold enough water, so we have to change that hourglass and change it 2 degrees. So those are the kind of things that it looks like prototype can really help you move forward and do. It's a lot less cost, a lot less work to be able to utilize at that plastic, that 3D printer. And, you can get updates. You can get a second, your next 3D print, your next version within hours sometimes, even if it's overnight, but you have the ability to really create the product, have it in your hand, mic it up, test it, beat it up, see if it's feasible, see if it fits where it's supposed to, see if it acts like it's supposed to in that looks like stage. And the costs and time are shortened. Everything is shortened. The cost could be lower. Obviously, if you're 3D printing a boat, it's going to be expensive. So you really probably wouldn't do that. But you can create a miniature version of that boat to test, to see how things work, to make sure the oars are going to click in when they're supposed to. Everything is in a 1/10 scale or a 3/4 scale. So there's ways to do that, even if you're going to go on a smaller version of something that's going to be big. So that's kind of what I talk about. So it looks like prototype is exactly how it sounds. It does not do, in most cases, what it's supposed to do. If it's supposed to do anything else but what it looks like. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it looks like prototype is just what it sounds like. It looks like your idea. It looks like it acts like it, but it doesn't do anything else. Meaning that if it has to have a wheel that spins around, you're not going to be able to get a wheel that spins around, because then it's a looks like, works like prototype. And that spinning wheel may need some type of electronics, batteries, lights. It may have to be hollowed out. It may have to have some kind of motor mounted into the product. So it looks like prototype is exactly how it sounds. Looks like what it's supposed to look like. And it's a great first step for most people. Now, it may be the only step you need. Like we used that water bottle example. I have a water bottle. I want to 3D print a water bottle. This design of my water bottle looks like this. We know it's going to hold water when you manufacture it. So there's no reason to have to worry about that. The looks like is as far as you have to go. You can modify it and create another one anytime you want. That's great. Now, the next step from there is a works like prototype. So you have the looks like prototype at first. It looks like this. The next is it's a works like prototype. Now, the works like prototype can have two different versions. It could look like your product and work, okay, or it doesn't look like what the final version is going to at all, but you're just testing your theory on how it will work, what it will do, what it's supposed to do when it does some type of action. So the works like prototype may have to complete some type of action. It may have to, as we talked about, it may have to pop up and spin around or light up or whatever it's supposed to do. But because you're in such a beginning stages, it may not look like your product is going to look, and that's okay. I mean, at some point you can always design it. When they're first designing, the next version of a car, for the, 5 years down the road, they're designing a car, but in the end result does not look the same as that first version, that first prototype. They're continually designing it, redefining it, fitting it with different systems and making sure things work, because it's not the look. It doesn't look like its final version. So you have a looks like prototype and you have a works like prototype. Now, if your product is and I don't want to use the word simple, if your product only does maybe one thing, it could be both while you're making this. If it doesn't have electronics, if it doesn't have moving parts, if it's a water bottle, you have a looks like and a works like prototype. It works. It holds water. It's not the final version. That word prototype is still there. So when you're talking about a prototype, it is not a final version of your product. It's not the manufactured version of your product. It is a prototype. And I want you to know what I mean when I'm talking about that. Because a lot of times when I have clients come into Earmark, or we get people that call us at the UIA, or we get emails, they're asking for a sample. Hey, who do you know that can make a sample of my product? Now, there's a lot more to talk about with prototypes, but I think we kind of covered that enough that you guys are going, okay, Carmen, we get it. There's a works like prototype, a looks like prototype. It's a prototype, There's a lot of stuff in between, but as long as that word prototype is connected to what you're looking for, remember that is not going to be a sample of a manufactured product, okay? Unless you use a 3D printer that's a production printer and it can produce what your product looks like and it can produce how it's supposed to work. So there are ways, and it's never always, it's never never. There's always things like that. But a majority of the things when you're working with a product, it's in prototype stages. Using that word prototype means that you can't really take that product and go to a retailer with it. It's hard to take that product and go to Shark Tank with it because it's not a sample of a production ready product. And that's the next step in this steps or the next types of samples or prototypes that I hear a lot of confusion around. So you have the prototypes, looks like, works like, and then you have samples or product samples. So after you've done and prototyped your product and you want to go to that next step, you're like, wow, this product works. I got a prototype. I got a works like prototype, got it together. I've been testing this over time and it really does what it's supposed to do. This is awesome. Now, the costs can't really be calculated from your prototypes because they're prototypes. It might not be the exact size. They might not be actual weight. They haven't been made out of the same materials. We don't know what's going to happen when we do change the specifications to be made out of certain materials. So if right now you're making out of plastic, but that water bottle has got to be made out of aluminum or stainless steel, there's going to be some changes. All right. The plastic is thicker. The aluminum or stainless steel is thinner. So when you make that hourglass design, the angles might have to be changed a little bit, updated a little bit. Is it going to hold less water? Is it going to hold more water? Is it going to get colder faster? So there's changes that will occur when you go from prototype design to a sample design. Okay, so that's where we have to kind of separate. So I've had discussions with a lot of our clients, and I'm not, as you guys know, I've said it a million times, I'm not the greatest communicator. That when we're talking to clients about prototyping their product, and we've made prototypes for them, I mean, our clients are great, but they're utilizing in their brain that they're getting a sample of their product, but on the paperwork, on the things that we're supplying, we are supplying a prototype, and again, they're not trying to trick us. We're not trying to trick them. It's just that verbiage has to jive correctly. And in most cases, it's not that big of a deal. But in some cases, you want to make sure that the clients or people you're working with, or even yourself, what you're getting, as with prototyping and a sample. Now, as you move to that sample of a product, it gets a little bit, not only a little bit more expensive, but a little bit more serious. So if you came to Earmark or came to us and said, hey, I need a sample of this product. I need a production sample, meaning that here's the specifications. Here are the measurements. Here's the weight. Here's the material. We need a sample of this product. Okay. I say, wow. All right. Because why? And there's, we're going to take it to retail. They're waiting for a product. They're waiting for a sample. We have to send it to the FDA. We have to send it to get it tested. The FDA is going to test the materials. We have to send it to HSN. They're going to drop test or whatever it is. If you need a usable working sample of a product, it's different because me as the supplier, I have to make a production version of a sample product. It's not a prototype anymore. I have to deliver to you a product that is going to be in your specifications for whatever reason you're asking for. Whether it's to be tested, it's going to the FDA, just like I said, material testing, drop testing. I mean, we've made bulletproof shields here. We have to send them out to be tested. So we went from prototype stage where they were just plastic, these bulletproof shields, but then the client wants to make actual samples with the material and send them out to be tested. How do you test them? They shoot the bulletproof shields and they give us, the report on what happened when they shot them. Okay, so when I talk about samples, it's much different. Now, sometimes the samples can be made in almost the same manner, but many times molds have to be made. But you can make those molds in a low-cost version, maybe an aluminum mold. Jigs have to be made if you're talking about electronics. Welding has to be done if you're talking about putting metals together. There's a lot of things that have to be put together. If your product has electronics, then electronics, the molds for the boards have to be put together. The electronics have to be put together and tested. You have to get code written for the chipsets. So if you want to get a product that's a sample, there's a lot more things that have to be done to get it in that sense. Now, my suggestion is that when you're coming out of the prototype stages, that if you don't have to go into the sample stages, okay, say you're the inventor and you're going to sell this product. You're not trying to get it in front of a retailer yet. You're not trying to get it on HSN or Shark Tank or QVC, and you want to sell the product, and you want to sell the product. There is no certifications that have to be done in a sense. So my suggestion is that you don't go with a sample. You go with a production version of the product, meaning that, again, you're going to make the product. You just have to get the product in your hand. So you go ahead, and this is a tricky thing. So you have to work with people that know what they're doing. You go ahead, send those files, send the specifications out to whoever you're going to work with, whether it's here at Earmark or whomever you trust to work with. We will get quotes and pricing for that product. It's $1 per unit. There's an MOQ of 1,000 units, and the molds are going to cost $10,000. Okay, so now you know that you have $1 per unit. You have to get 2,000 units, and the molds are $10,000. Now the factory will take a deposit. We'll get the factory started on the design of the product and the molds. They will get you a production sample. We're not going to make the product. Okay, you're not going to make 2,000 units yet. You're going to make maybe 1, maybe 5. All right, you're going to get production samples, not just samples. You're going to get production samples because you're going to make the product. There's no reason to waste the money on those samplings, which could be very expensive. You could spend $5,000 or $10,000 on samples and get 1 or 2, where you could have taken that money and put it into product that you can actually sell and recover your funds that you spent. So it's very important to know why you're doing prototyping, why you're doing sampling, and why you're doing production sampling. Very important to think about why you're doing that. Don't just follow some steps that somebody might have mentioned to you. Well, this is how we do it. This is how we've always done it. This is what we do. So when you're getting those production samples, you'll get 2 or 3 or 5 sent to you. Now, you're ready to make this product, but you may have some tweaks. You may have some updates. Every product, it has tweaks and updates, every one of them. And that's why they have versions of products. You're always going to make it better. You're going to make it faster. You're going to make it stronger. But that first version, that MVP, it just has to do what you want it to do. So the factory sends a couple samples, you get them, you test them. They say, hey, right here in the corner, I'd like this to have a little bit less plastic, or it's got to be curved a little bit more. Factory adjusts those molds that you spent money on, and boom, you're ready to manufacture your product. No reason to sample. There's no reason to. Okay. But going back, if there's a reason that you need production samples, because you want to do some testing, you have to send it somewhere, you have to get it okayed or verified, that's fine. That's a reason to do it. There's other reasons, but I'm not a big proponent on spending the money on that sampling phase if you're just doing it because you think that's your next step. And again, if you would need to do that, you want to do that, that's great. But I'm always been about not only saving money, but the money that you spend, you are able to recoup with sales of product rather than just having one or two samples in your hand so you can show people, so you could show your neighbors. So that's kind of it. I didn't want to really go this long with this, and I probably only covered a quarter of what I really wanted to. I did jump around a little bit. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. It's just that we did get several questions about prototypes and samples, and I wanted to kind of just jump on and talk a little bit about it. And if you do have some questions, please send them in to me, Earmark Sourcing, Carmine at Earmark Sourcing. Jump on our website, go to UIA if you would like to check that out. You can send us a note on UIAUSA.org. But either way, I appreciate you listened in, and everyone that's been in touch with us, getting us feedback, helping us out. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I will catch you next time on the Launchpad Show. You all take care.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you found the information helpful, we'd love for you to share our podcast and website with your friends. If you need help with an idea or invention, or have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode, don't hesitate to reach out through our website. Please note that all statements and discussions are the opinion of the hosts and guests and should not be considered legal or business advice.